think the most important piece is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
I've told you before, I'm a fan. This is our second meeting. You are nice, all right? You are nice with yours, all right?
I just want to shout out to Swift at Swift Sports Network.
What's up, Swift? This is Kyler Gordon. Just want to do a quick shout out to Swift Sports Network with all the latest news on the Bears.
You ain't speaking facts, we don't want to hear it. Yeah, we going for the dub. You are now watching Swift Sports.
The Bears.
What's up, guys? We're back. The draft is so close, actually. We're getting so close to the draft, and I'm here joined once again by good friend Glynn Morgan. Glynn, how you doing today, my man?
Man, I'm doing fantabulous, and as you said, the draft is drawing near, and I told you a little bit up before we got on here that I'm slowly ramping up, but watching your promo gets me even more a little more pumped up as well. So yeah, man, it's getting close, man. It's getting close.
It's time. I did read, so the news today, apparently Kelvin Banks Jr. is doing a private workout with the Chicago Bears today. I had Kelvin Banks early in the process. I had him right up there. Right. The closer we get, he's fallen down.
Yes.
I think I'm going to watch his tape again this weekend. I know I made one mistake. When I initially graded him, I watched both of those Georgia games. One of those games he wasn't even playing, and I thought it was him. The other guy, his backup, has like a very similar build as him, but he's number 78 instead of 74. But I do want to go back and watch his tape. What are your thoughts on Kelvin Banks Jr.? Have you thought much about him?
Earlier, just like yourself, early in the season, he was someone I actually had rated over Will Campbell because he's a bit more athletic, in my opinion. I thought he was able to get back into his sets a little bit more quickly, and the length of his arms helps a little bit too. But as the season wore on, he started, in my opinion, kind of to fall like Olu Fashanu fell last year. You know, and I think looking at him, it's like it's a little bit better version of Braxton Jones, but I think some of the same problems that Braxton presents. So
I've seen that too, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to draft Braxton again. You know, I like him. I don't love him. And we're talking top 10 pick. I need to love you when it's a top 10 pick, and I'm not loving. So I think I won't be shocked, however, if he goes before the Bears because the Saints with Ramczyk retiring, they have even more issues on their offensive line.
And that's the newest news. Yeah, right. If anyone didn't hear that, the Saints right tackle, he didn't play last season though. Ryan Ramczyk, he missed all last season, but he did retire. So interesting news.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked if because of the need that he may go a little bit earlier. I see him more as like mid first round, anywhere between 15 to 22, 23, somewhere in that realm. Or you know, he could fall more. If he does, and that's really saying something. But it's, you know, the draft is so weird, man. I mean, you know, guys fall, guys rise, and both times it's not deserve it. You know, you think of Aaron Rodgers, how far he fell. You know, you think of other guys who rose
Lamar
up.
Jackson fell real far too.
Lamar Jackson, yeah, I mean, he fell all the way to the second round, and you know, then they plopped him back into the last pick in the first round. You know, so and then other guys who you know, go up the draft board and you know, they're end up being a bust or bust caliber. So yeah, man, it's just because we may say something doesn't make it so, but here we are. You know, I know it's lying season, but it's also the great season of speculation.
Oh, yep. Speculation. Well. We're getting closer. One of the things I always like to, I don't ever like to think that my evaluation's the only one that matters. And when it comes to offensive line, especially, two of the guys I really respect are Duke Manyweather. He runs that offensive line heavyweights camp. And then Brandon Thorne. Brandon Thorne's been probably one of the best O-line evaluators of all time. Both of them today came out on Twitter. It might have been yesterday, actually. Came out on Twitter because they were both asked about Kelvin Banks Jr. Okay. They both said he's a guard. And that's where, to me, that's what I saw. And then I go to Dane Brugler's The Beast. You've read The Beast before. And I got that up right now, actually. And his final line of what he says about Kelvin Banks is he projects as an immediate starter in the NFL. He thinks he can stay at tackle, but clearly his best long-term position is inside at guard. So it's like everyone is telling you that. And it's like, if everyone thinks he's a better at guard, I just have to, I tend to go with it because there wasn't anything I saw on tape that told me, yeah, he's a for sure left tackle.
Which is crazy because both he and Will were considered top tier offensive tackles at the beginning of the season, you know, and they both seem to project, you know, they might be, where you hear it, they might be better at guard, you know, Will because of his arms being shorter, and Kelvin because of maybe some some technical issues with his, you know, his skill set. But I still think I still see Banks as an offensive tackle. I don't know if he is someone who's going to be dominant or someone who just plays position for 7-8 years and is good. You know,
Right.
It's just good and consistent, which sometimes, you know, when you've been in Chicago, good and consistent doesn't always seem to resonate when it comes to offensive linemen.
Yep, 100%. And this guy Muhammad made a great point in the chat. This was my biggest weakness of him when I watched. I wouldn't go as far to say his balance is bad, but there's too many times in the run game and in the pass game where his feet just aren't set, his footwork isn't right, and he's caught off balance and either loses the block or ends up on the ground. And that's something I don't know how you fix that if a guy just isn't. I don't know if it's coordination. To me, I feel like I haven't always been extremely athletic, but I've always had extremely awesome balance. Like I rarely fall. I don't fall. Right. I can run into stuff and stay up. Some people have that balance. Some doesn't. When I watch him and I read a comment like Muhammad says here, and I tend to kind of lean that way, that it's a balance issue there, that he just doesn't have the best balance. And I don't know how that will work in the NFL.
Well, it'll be interesting. And again, I don't know enough about Texas, their offensive coordinators in terms of position coaches, I shouldn't say coordinators, but in terms of position coaches, especially the offensive line position coach, in terms of how they're telling the set. Sometimes it can just be how you set your feet. It could be how they're asking you to block. And that can be remedied with, hey, you know, set your base this instead of that way. Have your weight distribution, don't lean forward as much, so you know your weight and where your legs are set is going to, you know, organically have you be offset to where someone could just give you an arm or take it away, and then because you're too front forward you fall off. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. In terms of what the correction is, now making the adjustment, that may be where the difficulty comes in, but that's where your reps and all that stuff. But good coaching, and I think specifically when it comes to offensive linemen, I think good coaching can make average offensive linemen better, and you know, good offensive linemen great, so on and so forth. And I think the converse works as well. Yeah, we've definitely seen some guys, whether it's because of the offensive coordinator scheme or the non-connectedness between the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, that somehow these guys all of a sudden they were good and they look like garbage. And then they go somewhere else and they look back, oh, I thought you were this good.
You put them next to talent. I think part of it is talent around them. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's going to really help us this year is having the better players on the interior. Because part of the thing that's happened that I've seen over the years with our offensive line, I don't want to get off topic, I just want to make this point.
Sure.
It's hard. It was one of the things when I was watching both Tevin Jenkins and Braxton Jones, because I've liked their games over the last couple of years, but they could play a snap well, but if the person next to them doesn't handle the stunt well, everything falls apart just like that. Or they could do something well, and the guy next to them's messing up, and the next guy's messing up, and the next guy's messing up, and then it causes them to try to do other things to help. I saw it with Tev a lot. He would try to help when he was next to Sam Mustipher. He would try to help. I think having the better interior play is going to make Braxton Jones a lot better. But we're talking about Kelvin Banks. I don't want to get too far off. I'll quickly throw up his just a quick scouting thing I did on him. I think he has the arm length. He measured in taller than he was expected. He has really good technique, really good hand usage. He can play tackle or guard. And he's a guy who's a day one starter. When it comes to the Bears at pick 10, I have him low on my list. I think he's one of the guys I'd rather trade down and think we could still nab him.
Right. But
current rumors, it's Lions season, but he is a name that's going around right now. So I wanted to start it off talking about him.
Yeah, I think you can't, and by you, I mean Bear fans and us in general, you can't look past the fact that offensive line is still a concern, particularly at the left tackle position. Braxton has been okay to good. And again, his struggles against power pass rushers has been duly noted. And who's to say after 3 years that's changed any? I do agree with you that having better talent around you can make you better. It will help you out, and they may be able to help you out if you're struggling a little bit too. But I question if Banks is that much of a guy that will come in and start over Braxton to justify the top 10 pick.
I've said that. I think beating out Braxton would be really hard if Braxton's healthy. Now, if Braxton has some kind of setback with his ankle and he's not healthy by camp, then okay, he might be able to get beat out by Kelvin Banks. But if Braxton's 100%, I don't see a rookie beating him out.
Yeah, because there's something to be said for experience. There's also something to be said for understanding the guys on your team and what they can do. And, Braxton has played with Swift, in the backfield. That's probably going to be, the starting running back. So understanding how that works, understanding how to run block. And that's something that Braxton is extremely good at run blocking. So we can't just because I shouldn't say just because clearly pass blocking is a huge thing, particularly when your offense revolves around your quarterback. But that being said, he hasn't been a liability in a run game at all. And he's still extremely young, still extremely athletic. Again, sans the ankle injury. So yeah, beating him out would be it's not necessarily an easy task. I do love having depth on offensive line though, because injuries happen. And again, we don't know the health of Braxton. I think, however, you have an opportunity here at 10 to take the best player available. And at that point, I'm not certain that I feel that Kelvin Banks Jr. is the best player at 10. You trade down, you get into the 20s or late teens, maybe. But again, I still think there are enough offensive linemen that if we project that Kelvin Banks won't beat out Braxton, that he may be, the swing offensive lineman, you mean to tell me there isn't another lineman in the draft that we can get, with our other picks that can do the same thing and still, you're not worried about you get a better, more talented, more explosive player, whether it's offensively or defensively at 10, and you can still get that offensive lineman to be a swing tackle anywhere, in the third round or the fourth round. So yeah, I don't feel the Kelvin Banks thing justifies at the 10th spot for me.
So that brings me perfectly to my next point, because last time we talked, you were not on the Ashton Genty train. I have a couple of statistics I want to show you before I ask you how you feel about him again. I'm going to hit you with a couple of statistics that I've got here. First one is this, okay? These were the 2024 rushing leaders in the nation, okay? Ashton Genty, 2,601 yards. But second place is not anyone else but Ashton Genty's yards after contact would have been the second most yards in the entire nation, more than anyone else had total rushing yards, more than Cam Scatterbo, Marion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Devin Neal, Bashal Tootin. But I'm not done. Let's look at this one. This shows this. These are the two stats from PFF here. Okay, broken tackles are the one where a guy hits you and you break the tackle, right? And then forced missed tackles are where you make a guy miss. You elude the tackle completely.
Sure.
So not only does he have more broken tackles than the next two guys combined in the nation, but more than Caleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton, and Quinshawn Judkins combined. So he's clearly the best tackle breaker. But then you look at eluding tackles, and he's also the best in the class. He had more than Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson combined. It's crazy. How are you feeling right now about Ashton Genty?
I think you did a phenomenal job finding stats and the comparisons, and it statistically speaking, all was it all metrics included, all that kind of stuff. I am duly impressed, truly. What I think is missing is what conference he played in and the teams he played against. And when you look at all those other guys you have listed there, most of those guys are either in the Big Ten or the SEC or something of that or Power 4 conference. I was watching. So, but again,
did you watch him against Oregon though, where he does the same thing to guys like Derek Harmon and Jordan Birch and Bassa, the linebacker?
I think, and I didn't watch the Oregon game in of itself in its entirety specifically. I'll
you got to watch that one. See?
Full disclosure. And here's the funny thing. I wanted Genty to win the Heisman Trophy. I was rooting for him the whole season. I'm like, hey, it was a great story. I wanted to see him win it. I'm kind of sick of it always being a kind of a quarterback, award, so to speak. I like it if a receiver wins it or some other position. So here, again, rooting for him. I have no animosity. I have no angst against him. I just don't like him at the 10th pick overall. That being said, I did go back and watch a lot of his games, kind of zipping through, just focusing on him. And a lot of times I'm looking at guys take horrible approaches on tackling him. A lot of times they try to tackle him high. And it's not that he's so powerful up top, but he's so compact that I think their approach to tackling him was wrong to begin with. It was going to be a broken tackle anyway. And I think there are times where, because I couldn't understand, I'm like, he's the best option on the team. Why is he's not getting touched 6-7 yards? He's passing line of scrimmage. He's not even getting touched. So there were a lot of, easy lanes. I won't say necessarily big open holes. I'm not going to give you that kind of illustration, but there were a lot of open lanes for him, whether it's left, right, or whatever. And a lot of times he was running up the middle. He's getting 6 yards. He's getting past the second level before, he's facing a lot of cornerbacks.
Oh yeah.
And he's not facing the defensive tackles or the linebackers. And a lot of times with his cuts, the things that I shouldn't say, bother may be too strong a word, but makes me raise my eyebrow is sometimes when he has to make his cut, when he's in open field, he has to gather himself to make his cut. And I'm like, I don't know if you're going to always necessarily be able to do that in the pros. You're not going to have those kind of lanes in the pros. Some of the tackles, and this is the other thing too, broken tackles. I need to have a definitive way for someone to describe to me, this is what a broken tackle looks like. Because sometimes it can be one arm on your leg and it's a broken tackle. I'm like, okay, dude.
I think part of his problem here with the evaluation is people see it is he's so good at breaking tackles. I believe it's the best I've ever seen. His contact balance is insane. He ping pongs off guys. And he did it against Oregon. He's done it against no matter where you. And this is one of the things I think is the biggest narrative here is that the Big Ten and all these other conferences, everyone in those conferences are good at tackling. Look, if you watch Michigan or Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia, yes, those teams are full of NFL players. But you put on Indiana or Northwestern or some of the smaller teams, and you have the same issues where guys cannot tackle. It happens all over college football. You can watch it on any of these guys' tape. The problem is with Genty, though, when he's against a team like Oregon and he's doing the exact same things where his balance is so good that he's making people look like they're bad tacklers. And then it becomes hard to tell, okay, is he doing this all the time? And that's what I believe, because he's just so good at absorbing contact or making these little. You'll see it a lot of times if you slow down his film. He'll just make these little, I call them like micro cuts, like micro moves, where right before a guy hits him, he shifts his weight a little bit and he's able to absorb the contact in a way that it pushes him forward or he keeps going with it. And I think what I'll say right here is with Genty for me, honestly, at this point, I don't think we're going to get him. I think he's too good. Raiders or someone else are going to take him, but I believe Genty is going to be a special player in the NFL. That's where I'm at with him.
We have to make a $20 bet then. I think he'll be a nice back. Okay, here, just so I understand your definition of special, give me maybe 2 or 3 players who you would consider special that Genty would be in that range of specialness.
Saquon Barkley, LaDainian Tomlinson.
So you think he's going to be special in that regard? Okay,
I think so.
$20 bet. we'll give it 3 seasons. We'll give it 3 seasons.
So who's your favorite? Since you're not on the Genty train at 10 right now, who do you think is the favorite at that spot?
I'm Tyler Warren heavy.
That was the next, because I know last time we talked, you were in on him, but I think I sold you on him a little bit more even. So now he's all the way. You're on board.
Well, here's the thing. You didn't have to work really hard to sell me. I'll say that because fortunately this past season I was able to work at the Big Ten Network.
Yep.
And so I got to see a lot and hear a lot and listen to a lot, and also listen to Jake Butt, who was a former tight end at Michigan,
Oh yeah.
talk to me about Tyler Warren and just, how versatile and unique and the problems that he poses. And this is after a year where I've watched Brock Bowers, and he was someone who I was highly, I thought was a top 5 talent. I know he wasn't going to go top 5, but I thought in terms of talent and what he can do and the problems that he presents as a chess piece for a particular offensive scheme, I thought that he was one of the better tight ends I've ever seen in college. And I still stand by that. Tyler Warren isn't as physical as Brock, and I don't know if he's as explosive in terms of acceleration as Brock, but I think he's a bit more versatile. I think his agility is a little bit better. And I think they both play with the same kind of tenacity. But I think that Warren is even more problematic if you know how to scheme him and utilize him. Ironically, Penn State, as conservative as they are on offense, they did a great job featuring him this year, and they used him in some ways. I'm like, wow, can you guys be more creative with the rest of your offense instead of just with the tight end? You might actually win games against Ohio State. And with that being said, I think particularly because it's Ben Johnson, he's the Bears head coach now, and he loves 12 personnel, and we've seen the creative things he's done with the Detroit Lions. And I think a player like, and not only that, but they went high and they drafted Laporta last year. So, he values that position too.
Oh yeah.
And clearly he's had a big influence.
And they did that when they had TJ Hawkinson already on the roster. So
well, they traded him, but
they did before the draft. But I'm saying when they had Hawkinson on the roster and with Ben Johnson's approval, because you don't do that without your offensive coordinator signing off, they said, TJ Hawkinson, yeah, he's real good. He's a Pro Bowl level tight end, but I can find someone better in the draft. So when you think about Cole Kmet and his future with the Bears, it's hard without hearing it or seeing it on the football field from Ben Johnson to think that Ben Johnson says, yeah, that's the guy I want, when he was that quickly to dismiss a guy of TJ Hawkinson's talent.
More accomplished.
I have to wonder what he thinks of Kmet. And hearing him talk about Tyler Warren, it could have been. It's definitely Lion season, but
well, I look at it as, I've been I won't say a big proponent, but I've definitely given the thumbs up when it comes to having 2 tight ends on the field at the same time. We saw the Patriots dominate without a primary wide receiver, without a dominant primary wide receiver. Go to Super Bowl and win, and dominate, a couple of seasons when Hernandez and younger Gronkowski were killing everybody. It's a matchup problem. We saw the Atlanta Falcons go all the way to the Super Bowl that they should have won, with basically using 3 tight ends, and none of those tight ends were as dynamic as the 2 that the Bears have right now. They were good tight ends, but they weren't guys who were killing you down the seam and stuff. And had 2 running backs, and basically just alternating the running backs, and with 3 tight ends where you didn't know what they were going to do. You couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop the pass, and Julio Jones, it was a problem all the way to the Super Bowl until they outcoached themselves. So you look at Ben Johnson here with much better wide receiving talent, an offensive line that not necessarily as athletic or as dominant as the Lions, but a solid offensive line by all measures for the most part. You're going to expect this line to be much more improved. A quarterback who's at least has the experience of a full season, and hopefully has learned from a lot of the mistakes. I always believe that when you struggle, it's the best chance to learn. When you're doing right all the time or you're winning, you don't think you have as many problems. So, helping to avoid sacks. Here's the other thing with Warren, it helps your blocking. We talked about getting help for Braxton. Okay, well, I put another tight end on the side of you right there. It helps with your blocking. With your running, you can run, either direction. We don't know where you're going. You've got different types of backs from Swift and Johnson, whoever else the Bears may draft. It helps your wide receivers in terms of, they may never get double teamed because the middle of the field now is susceptible to both tight ends being able to either stretch it vertically to some degree, but definitely horizontally. I think
you saw him last year. What did you think of him I think it's crazy, but what did you think of him running the football as a Wildcat?
I think that's the thing too. Like he's a better runner of the ball than Brock Bowers to me. And again,
you've been hard to tackle.
And
he averaged 9 yards a carry.
He's slippery without looking silky. He's not that silky, slippery kind of like Matt Forte. But for a big guy who's a tight end, he's got that wiggle. And people kind of slide off him a little bit. Some of it's because he's strong. He's a strong runner, but he's also, he's evasive. I guess that'd be a better word. He's an evasive big man running the ball who's got really good hands and who can also throw the ball too. So you can do a tight end
and really throw the ball too.
Yeah, can really throw the ball because he used to play quarterback, I believe, when he was in high school. So.
Yeah.
And here's
a lot of people will say the high school quarterback stuff, and I like to say this about it. Sometimes they can overrate that because there's some high schools where these guys aren't throwing the football; they're just running wildcat the whole time.
Right.
Tyler Warren has actually thrown passes in college in big time games and thrown some dimes, so he's shown that he can do it. Yeah,
and you can line up in the backfield. If you're at the offensive at the goal line, you're 5 yards in. You can go from being, having two tight ends on opposite ends of the tackles to moving him into the backfield to give her a different look and then swing him out on a pass.
And my favorite part of his game is his contested catch ability. You see so many times on tape where he's got a DB draped all over him.
Yeah.
And he's just so big and he has such long arms, and his what's the word I'm looking for? His ability to concentrate when the ball's coming in and focus on it and find it, readjust his body.
Yeah.
And the guy could be draped on. He'll reach behind the guy, catch it behind their head, and moss him. Like, I just think that is one of the best abilities that translates in the NFL. When you can make contested catches over 50% of the time, that's something you're going to be able to do in the NFL.
And his ability to track the ball, I agree with you. He does a really good, like most tight ends, even the ones that are good pass catchers, they're good when the balls, when they're facing the pass. Or when it's on a slant, maybe sometimes, or they're catching it, but catching it over your shoulder down the seam, or catching it with people around you over your shoulder, tracking it. Yeah, I think he definitely sets himself apart there, and I think it solves an issue potentially with the Bears. And I think it's fine that they got some of the slot receivers they got in free agency with Zacchaeus. But I also, and still wonder if Tyler Scott's going to do anything. But I think it solves a problem with having a dependable third down catcher, receiver, in third down situations. And when you don't have to necessarily get 3rd and 13, 3rd and 20, whatever, I'm talking 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 and 7, which you see more regularly, he presents a problem because he can be there blocked, then he can release late, he can release early. I mean, it's all types of things you can do. You can run him underneath. He doesn't have great speed, but he has a good speed, and again, he is dangerous after the catch. So if you need 5 yards, you could throw it to him 3 yards. He may be good enough to get those extra 2 yards. One, he's got the length of his body, so that might help him stretching the ball forward. But again, he's such a good runner after the catch that I'm really in love with this pick, as you can tell.
Yes. To clear up chat, we're not overrating his throwing abilities. I don't think anyone wants him throwing more than a pass or two a season, but he presents that threat. Like when he has the ball behind the line of scrimmage, you have to actually respect it, which is just another layer of Ben Johnson, who loves to add those trick plays in. It's another layer there that he can really work with. And I do love Tyler Warren. I think right now when I'm looking at the draft, it really comes down to the Raiders at pick 6 with what happens with the Bears here. If the Raiders, I think they can go a multitude of directions here. Obviously, Ashton Genty is the favorite, but there's a lot of smoke heating up on Armand Membu right now. Yeah. And if they take Armand Membu, to me, I think Armand Membu to the Jets is a perfect fit. But if they take him before, I think the Jets could pivot there and take Tyler Warren. And then that's gonna break things open.
Yeah, and and that's if I think with Membu, he's such an interesting figure because he kind of projects more as a right tackle, and so you ask yourself, do I want to take a right? Usually, you take your tackles, you want to be the ones that protect your blind spot, and it's usually left tackles.
Yep.
But he's so good, and he's so physical and dominant. And you put him on the Jets, and we know who the quarterback is there now.
Yes, sir.
It helps out in terms of having someone athletic like that. So if Justin is rolling to his right, you've got somebody right there in front of you to help you ward off some people as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Membu lasts till 7. With the Raiders, it's interesting because of who the head coach is now.
Yep.
And he's a veteran that he's not going to be, he's so accomplished that he doesn't have to be, forced or rushed or quote unquote media bullied, or fan bullied into taking Genty because it's the, fashionable name and everything.
Yep.
I wouldn't be shocked if he takes an offensive tackle. because he realizes in order for your running backs to run anywhere, they got to have guys that are blocking.
Yep. And people have said, I mean, Pete Carroll has drafted some running backs in the first round before, but he's also drafted some busts in the first round like Rashad Penny. And he's had success in round 2 with guys like Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet on day 2 as well. I think he fell to round 3 or 4 though, but Kenneth Walker in round 2 was a huge hit. If he's healthy, he's a beast. But that's where it comes down to. They're in a position they can take Genty, but they could also take Armand Membu and still grab a really talented running back in round 2.
See, to your point, I see someone like Caleb Johnson. If he's there in the second round and you take Membu in the first round, I can see.
Well, I think they have a connection to the Ohio State running backs. I don't know if it was I think they might have hired the O-line coach from Ohio State. So that brings me, Florida Bears fan just asked a question here.
Henderson.
Who do you like best out of the 2 Ohio State backs, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson?
QJ, baby. Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah. I'm a big Quinch. I will say this. There's so much difference between the 2. I think Judkins profiles as the 3-down back. He's a guy who can be your short yardage guy, or he can be your elusive guy, break and tackle. He can do it all. I think he has that game. With Travion Henderson, I think it's possible he could actually get drafted in the first round due to one trait, his pass blocking. Well, 2 traits: pass blocking, 4.3 speed. Both things that NFL teams really covet. When you're a guy who can run 4.3, and his pass blocking tape
is really good.
It's probably the best I've ever seen as a running back.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, I could see him get. I really do not want us to touch him at pick 10. But when you get to that late first round, I saw someone, stupid Benjamin Albright or something, said, "Oh, the Bears are going to take Travion Henderson at 10." I was like, "Stop it!" But I could see him going somewhere between pick 20 and 32.
I can't. I'm with you right there. The only, I can actually see him falling back a little bit too out of weirdness, but
I think both of them would be options at 39 for the Bears too.
Yes. If they're on the board, I mean, take either one you take. I'm not pissed. I'll put it that way. I'm fine with either one of those guys. I think, and again, the reason why I skew a little bit or lean a little bit more towards Judkins, I think his availability has been more consistent throughout his college career from Ole Miss to Ohio State. I think with Henderson, being nicked up, sometimes you have that Lamborghini when it gets nicked up, you need to make sure everything works just right.
You look at Henderson, and one of the things about with Judkins coming there, and it made that running back room better. And that's what Judkins made Henderson better. And that's where Henderson knows that he's better in kind of that change of pace role where he can come in and be full, have all his stamina and have his breakaway speed and kind of just mix and match him in there instead of, you're not going to hand it off to him 20 times a game. But in today's NFL, you see it with Jahmyr Gibbs. You don't have to be that main guy. If you can come in, touch the ball, and get a 30-yard touchdown, hey, that's what it is. And the NFL wants guys like that. So I like both the running backs a lot. I'm like you. I prefer Judkins slightly just because I think he can do it all. I think he can also be that pass catcher. He can be elusive. And he's also a really willing blocker. Now, unfortunately, when he went, now he was a pretty good pass blocker at Ole Miss, but when he went to Ohio State, he didn't get as many reps as a pass blocker because Travion was so great. And I wish he would have got more reps at it, but I still think he can be very good.
Yeah, I think for the most part, if you show the aptitude in college and then the willingness once you get to the pros, they can work with you. And I think both those guys
he definitely did. He's definitely willing.
Right. And I think both those guys exhibit that. They're both really good teammates. Henderson was very welcoming. You would think with Judkins getting there, he might feel kind of funny. Yeah. But again, them being able to work together as team is a big reason why Ohio State was able to dominate as much as they did in the playoffs.
I heard the way they sold it to him was actually talking about Ben Johnson's offense, and he was like, "Look, we'll have a David Montgomery, and you'll be the Jahmyr Gibbs." And Henderson was like, "I'm in, bring him in if it helps us win."
Yeah, so maybe a little, foreshadowing, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm happy with either one of those guys, most definitely. And I do believe whether it's the 39th pick or the 41st pick right after that, I think one of those two needs to be. Oh, I shouldn't say needs to be. I would love it if it's one of these running backs who you can pretty much, I won't say guarantee, but you pretty much feel so strongly about taking them that it's like, it's no question, like you're fine with it. As opposed to you get to 72. And again, this is one of the deepest running back draft classes I've ever seen in my entire life. Seriously, I'm not saying that. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. I think they're going to be at least maybe 2 to 3 guys who may be free agents who might end up being instrumental to their team as the season wears on. That's how deep I think this running back class is. I think this presents you with whatever type of running back you want to have, receiving running back, power running back, hybrid, whatever. I think it's there. They're all there, and there's more than one. There's more than 2. There's probably at least 3 or 4, you know. So I'm not saying that the Bears can't get a running back later on. I'm just saying that it's, as opposed to waiting and maybe thinking you're going to get a guy, take the guy that you really want when you can, and then, you know, focus on your other areas too. So yeah, at 39 or 41, I'm happy if they take, especially if it's Henderson. I'm not saying in any order, but if it's Henderson or Junkins or someone of that ilk.
Yep, 100%. Someone in the chat asked, explain why, if there's no offensive tackle available and Ashton Genty is gone, why can't we just take Omarion Hampton from North Carolina? Why blow this pick on a tight end, edge, DT when we can get the second best running back?
Because I don't think you're blowing the pick.
I don't either. Yeah. To me, it's this is how I like to explain it. When it comes to the draft, I'm always taking the best player available. And I'm not a guy who likes taking running backs in the first round. To me, the only reason I like Genty is the number 3 overall player on my big board. I have him behind only Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I even have him above Mason Graham. So Genty's my number 3. So if he's there at 10, that's why I like him. When it comes to Hampton, should I pull up my big board? Let me look real quick. I'm going to tell you.
You're not a big Hampton fan, though. You think you're not a big Hampton fan.
I like Hampton. He's not in my top 30. I think I have him like number 31. Like he's just outside of my top 30. So when you're talking about taking a guy at pick 10 that you have on your big board is 30, I'm not with that. The Bears would have to have him as a top 10 to 12 player to even consider that.
Well, in answer to is this Steppensaw? Is my reading correct? Answer to your question, I don't think I'm taking any running back at 10, to be quite honest with you. Regardless who's available. I mean, if it's Barry Sanders, yes, but you know, again, he retired some time ago. And let's look at Barry's numbers, just to be crazy. When I talk about special running backs, they didn't count bowl game statistics back then, and there was no playoff or anything like that, no conference championship game. So when he was playing for, was it the Big 8 at the time? I don't even think it was
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, the Big 8 at the time. So Nebraska and Oklahoma were kind of ruling the roost there. Without including that, he still has the most yards. I think it's like, what is it, 2,800 or 2,600? It's some kind of
right there above Genty. Yeah, Genty was second most. Yeah,
second most with additional games.
Only one. He only played one playoff game. They didn't have the first round. They got a first round bye, buddy. So it was only one additional game.
There was no conference championship game.
No, I don't think so.
No, not for the Mountain West.
I'll look up his amount of games.
But yeah. So anyway, to not go completely, sideways, which I'm prone to do.
We're good at that.
Yeah, I'm not taking any running back at 10 this year. I'm not. I think Amari is nice. I think he is proven, or I think he's shown enough that for him to be going the first round, I think that's a win right there. But there again, this draft, here's a big reason why. If you told me there are only 4 or 5 really good running backs in this draft class, then that raises to me the emphasis of taking one, the importance of taking one. Like, okay, especially if you need one or you're looking to have one be a part of your offense in an integral way, then yes, at that point, I will look at those guys a little bit more discernedly. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I think one of these 2 guys is going to fit because of X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Not this year, buddy. This year, no, you just don't. There are no less than 12 running backs, and maybe no more than 20 or 22 that are going to make people's teams this year. Yep. And of those top 12, 6 or 7.
But I only think 3 or 4, maybe 5 are special, though. There are only a couple of these special ones. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. When I say it's a deep draft class, I'm not saying that everybody's special. I mean, it's just that you're going to have guys that are going to be instrumental in doing things for their team this year. Yep.
I think two positions, like it's not just running back. I also think defensive tackle, when you get to round 5 and 6, you're going to find people being big time contributors early on in their rookie season.
Yep.
That's why I wish we had more picks in that round 4 or 5 range, because right now, round 2 and 3, you're going to get potential impact players who can start. But in rounds 4 and 5, at least at a couple positions, you're going to get some borderline starter quality players, or at least really good backups.
Now, to Stefan's question or his point, or in terms of his enthusiasm for Marion, is that for Hampton, is that at 10, if you want to talk to me, some other team, and I trade down, that's fine. To your point, if I can acquire another 4th round pick or 5th round pick and or both, and I trade down, and I trade down to 17, 18, or 22, wherever we think Hampton may fall and still be available, I can live with that. I'm not PO'd at all, because again, I think there's so much that can help the Bears in this draft. I thought it was a lot more last year, but I think there's still just as much this year, because again, the areas of need that I see that the Bears have to focus on are offensive line, defensive line, i.e. edge rusher, running back, and I think we really need, I think both you and I talked about focusing on getting a really good safety this year, because we don't know about Brisker's health long term. And if possible,
did you hear what Dennis Allen said yesterday?
No, I did not. Please.
Oh, so this, I actually talked to him. So he said right now their plan and what he's having Kyler Gordon do is learn a second position. And he said before they get to mini camps, what he wants Kyler doing over the next month, whatever it is, before the OTAs start up, he wants Kyler to learn the safety position, free safety, and touch up on his outside corner skills. He said basically what he wants him to do is be on the field all the time. So if they go to if they go down to 2 corners and they're not in the nickel, he would either move to free safety or move to corner. Now he has more experience at outside corner, but he did say he sees everything in him that he could play that free safety position as well. And what I see him doing, when I watched Dennis Allen over the last couple of years, he had Tyrann Mathieu. And he moved Tyrann Mathieu around that defense kind of like a chess piece. Yeah. I think that's what he wants to do with Kyler Gordon. And if he's going to do that, maybe that takes the need off of safety just a little bit. Maybe.
I still, and you're right. I mean, it's a new defensive coordinator. And so I'm basing it off of how Brisker played since he's been here. And I like his physicality. And I think as good as Kyler is, as disruptive as he can be in terms of just being a nuisance and blocking passes away, making, the tackles that you need to get to stop someone, from converting a 3rd down to a 1st down, and his ability to, just be pesky, to be everywhere. His physicality at the safety position, I that won't be there. And sometimes I like that. I like the threat of someone being there that can knock the crap out of you, make a break on the ball, that can stop a pass, not necessarily because he was able to get there and deflect it, but because he dislodged it from you. He disconnected you from the ball. I still want that element. If you told me they were converting Tyreek Stevenson or Terrell Smith to a safety position because of their size and their length, I like that. I think to your point, Kyler Gordon, him to be utilized any and everywhere, I think is fantastic. By the same token, I don't want him in a position to where he needs to be in on tackles like a safety may be, because I think they may wear him down.
He is now, but right now he already is in that nickel position. They have him up there basically playing like a linebacker. When you watch his tape, he's fitting the run. He's taking on offensive tackles sometimes and trying to dodge those blocks. He's always down. I think actually if he gets more reps at free safety, I think it takes him away from the action a little bit and allows him to kind of use his ball skills. Like if you got him in a position where I think it's kind of what Tyrann Mathieu did. Yes, he was a free safety, right? That's the position he was listed at. But when you watch the Saints defense, he would play nickel, right?
Oh yeah.
He would come up in blitz. He would guard tight ends and he would guard slot receivers. So that was one of those things. I think that's how he plans on using Kyler. And I think Kyler's perfect for it because he's already playing the nickel. So he's already doing a lot of what Tyrann Mathieu does. but then occasionally you just move him back and let him play center field where he has a chance to use his athleticism and his ball skills to break on a ball, because instead of guarding someone, he gets to step back and watch the quarterback's eyes. I think it would help take him to a Pro Bowl level, and that's what I want to see this year. To me, Tyreek Stevenson and Terrell Smith, they're both better on the boundaries, right? Because they're big and physical and they can match up and, deflect passes. And to me, Kyler is that chess piece on a defense. So you can move around and he can pretty much do everything. And I that's what I want to see happen.
Yeah, I just want him to stay healthy for the whole season.
Yeah.
That's all.
True.
But yeah. I mean, it's great that the Bears. I was looking at a lot of other teams in the division, or the other teams in the division, and I'm like, man, some of these teams don't really need. There's not like a desperate need anywhere. They're pretty stout. I'm looking at the Bears. I'm like, no, we're really not that bad either, But and again,
we need a defensive end. When I'm looking at it, especially another thing that Dennis Allen said, since you didn't watch that, and I'll tell you, is first he talked really highly of Grady Jarrett and Javon Dexter, but when he mentioned Dio Odengbo, he said his favorite thing about him is his ability to come inside to defensive tackle and rush the quarterback. So when I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, so we got good defensive tackles and you want to move Odengbo inside on passing downs. Who is our other defensive end on those passing downs?
Right.
And you can project Austin Booker there, but I think you would at least need competition at that spot.
Yeah.
So to me, I see like one major hole on this roster. We need another defensive end and we need a running back. And then on top of that, our other needs are, we could use depth at left tackle. We can use depth at safety, and we can use depth at linebacker. We can use depth all over, but the two glaring needs really are running back and defensive end.
I definitely agree with you on defensive end. I think there's two. I don't know if running back is as glaring a hole.
I think it is. So here's why. Let me just say why. Well, one, Ben Johnson wants to run the ball. He wants to run the ball, and I like DeAndre Swift. I also like Roschon Johnson. But when you're looking at the future of this running back room, this is the last year of DeAndre Swift's contract. He has one more year, but I project him to most likely get cut next year. I like Swift. He's going to save us some money next year because we're going to take advantage of the best running back class in a long time. And then the other guy we have is Ian Wheeler, but you have to see he's healthy before you can even project anything. So to me, I like Roschon, but I think Roschon is more of he's a committee player. He's not going to be a lead back. And same thing with Swift. I like him, but he's better if you can add a complement with him. So I think running back is it doesn't have to be in the first 3 picks. Someone else just asked a great question that's actually perfect for you. Is if we don't take a running back at 10, 39, or 41, what running backs do you think will be left for us at 72? And this is my point here. Yes, I think that can happen. We don't have to take one in the top 3, but I think we'd take one by 72.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's just a matter of semantics. When you say glaring, to me, glaring is I need to address you in the first 3 picks. And that's why I'm like, I don't know if glaring's a thing, like a position to address unequivocally. Yes. Yeah. Glaring, I'm like,
let me rephrase that. I don't think we have any glaring needs, but when I'm looking at the 2 things we have to do in this draft at some point, it would be draft a defensive end and draft a running back.
Yes. I think for me, and I agree that the position, are close to glaring, if not glaring, but like I really want you addressing the first 3 picks would be offensive tackle for me. Because again, Braxton's in his last year too, and in 3 years he hasn't done enough to where I feel for certain that I don't need to look at left tackle. So, and again, glaring may be. I think Mike, I'm a little bit closer to my glaring on offensive tackle than I feel you were with the running back. But again, to your point, I think the most, like, without a doubt, one of the first 3 positions, the first 3 picks, one of the positions that needs to be addressed, without doubt to me is defensive edge. I agree wholeheartedly with that. But the best part about it is that at running back and at defensive edge, and even to some degree on offensive line, it's actually a deep draft. So,
Yeah,
so
on
it
the
gives,
interior of the offensive line, it's because you had so many tackles that project to guard now. Even
right,
guys, the day two guys like
right.
Wyatt Milam, who was a left tackle who never allowed a sack at West Virginia. He's 100% a guard in the NFL.
Right.
So it's a
Right.
deep guard draft. It's a deep defensive tackle draft. I think it's pretty deep at tight end and running back as well. And then because of that,
Edge is definitely deep.
well, yeah, the whole D line.
Oh,
It's
D-line,
probably one
right.
of the whole deepest D line drafts I've ever seen.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're going to have opportunities here. When it comes to pick 72, what running backs will be left? I would hope Caleb Johnson would fall. I don't know the odds, but you would have guys like Bashal Tootin, Brashard Smith out of SMU,
I'm a fan.
Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. There's a lot of guys.
Biased.
Gadabo.
I'm biased with Dylan Sampson. I'm a fan of Rashard Smith. I like Damian Martinez out of Florida.
DeMar. That's
I mean,
guy.
I'm not out of Florida. She's out of Miami.
Miami, yeah.
I like him because of his size, and I think he does enough. He's got the physicality with with a burst. Ollie Gordon, like a year ago, was considered one of the better running backs, and he just kind of fell out of people's
I honestly, what I think I saw on his tape, I think he was so physical and he took so many hits in 2023 because he was running guys over. I think he was saving himself a bit for the draft, and it's gonna hurt his draft prospects, especially. But he's a guy I think he's gonna get into an NFL team. He's gonna be pissed off because he got drafted in somewhere on day 3. He's gonna be pissed off, and Ollie Gordon is gonna end up being a good running back in the NFL.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, dude, they're there. And Caleb, he could fall. I think Scatterbo, I think he was a good story, and I think he's a good back. I don't know how good a back in the pros he'll be, per se.
I think he just lacks that speed. I think he could be a good short yardage back, but I don't ever see him being a 3-down back in the NFL either. But he's a guy, if he's your committee and he's your guy that comes in on 3rd and 1, picks up those first downs, people will like him. So,
I mean, little ATN, like I say little, just not because he's
Trevor,
small, but he's the younger brother of Travis. He's not a bad back either. I don't know if I'm necessarily revolving my offense around him. But yeah, man, I like Martinez. Tootin's not bad. Devin Neal,
Devin Neal's another one.
He's compact. He's got that burst. He's got that home run hitting speed as well.
RJ Harvey out of UCF. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but I like him too.
Ironically, I played with UCF in NCAA, the video game. Yeah? And he wasn't too bad. I'm not too pissed. That being said, I didn't do as well with UCF as I would have liked. So maybe I don't take RJ. But no,
you weren't giving him the ball enough. See, that's what it was. You were passing. You were passing, Glenn. You should have rode with RJ Harvey and used the play action.
I was most definitely passing.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, and I think to our point, there are a lot of running backs that are still available that. And again, coming to the Bears offense, you don't have to be the guy off the bat right away because Swift is that veteran that's here. So you can grow into that role as well. So once again, the need at 10 for a running back, I just don't see it. Not for this team, not for this.
Oh, yeah, I think at 10, we're just in that position though, that without any glaring holes on the roster, we can take the best player available. And then with the draft being this deep, any of your holes or things you want to address, you have pick 39, you have pick 41, you have pick 72. And both of those picks in the early second round, I know everyone's reporting it's going to be really hard to trade down from 10. If we want to move back a little bit from 39 or 41, we can probably get a deal done in those spots because that early second round, there are going to be some big names on the board. And if I know with pick 39, I think we'll probably pick, but I've seen situations where most of the guys we want get picked and say there's like a wide receiver or someone there, like an Emeka Egbuka. Instead of taking a guy like that, I would like to use them as trade bait and say, look, this is a first round talent on the board right here. Who wants to come up from 49 to 41? Just give us a 3rd round pick. And then we got another pick on day 2 late as well. So I'd love to see something like that.
Now, would you do that with a team in the division? The Lions come to you and they want to pair Egbuka with
you know what? I'd be like, give me a 3rd this year and a 3rd next year.
Yeah.
They'd have to pay up. Like if it's a team in the division, I'd have to really be ripping them off. Like I'm not giving them value there.
Right.
Someone
I'm
asked a good question: Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan? I love both
Yes.
prospects. Yeah, there you go. But to me, Kenneth Grant, he's better against the run,
Yeah,
and has more upside. Whereas to me right now, especially when you look at the Bears and what their D line looks like, to me, Walter Nolan is a guy who projects to be at his best would be Grady Jarrett. So you're just putting another guy behind Grady Jarrett to maybe learn from him. I don't hate the idea, but we already got Javon Dexter and Zach Pickens there. So to me, I want another Andrew Billings who can get after the quarterback.
Do we have Zach Pickens there?
Zach maybe not, but Javon, people are forgetting. Javon Dexter has Pro Bowl upside. He had more sacks than Jalen Carter on a less talented defensive line, and people are acting like he's not good. So Javon Dexter is going to be a huge part of this D line this year. So to me, I'd rather have a Kenneth Grant to go with Javon Dexter and Grady Jarrett. I think that mix of D tackles is better.
I think, and again, I'm fine with both. And Grant is humongous. I mean, 6'3", 330. That's a hard person to block out of the way. and it definitely helps your run defense unequivocally. I agree with that. And putting him next to Javon makes it very stout in the middle. Grady, hell, I think if the Bears get the right defensive lineman, whether it's a sizable edge rusher who's good against the run but has some length and can be a power rusher, so to speak, off the edge or whatever, and Odeyembo being there, you could at sometimes put 5 defensive linemen up there and just wreak havoc to some degree, because it's going to be hard to block all those guys. And if you have enough athleticism in the middle with someone like Javon Dexter who can get his arms up, he doesn't have to drop. I'm saying drop deep. I'm not saying drop deep into coverage, but you stand back 3, 4, 5 yards.
That Justin Jones coverage drops.
Well, I mean, not nothing goofy like that where I'm putting him in a position to fail. I'm not getting him out on the perimeter. I'm saying you're in the middle of the field and you drop back a little bit because this team is killing you with underneath routes. You get a guy, you're still rushing 4 guys. You drop someone back like him with his arms, with his wingspan and arm span, his athleticism. It could be a problem. Just doing like this can be enough to cause disruption with. And
he's shown timing. He can do it before. He's batted down balls. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So getting someone like Grant, I'm fine because it makes your defensive interior that much more stout. I do like Nolan, however, because I like his athleticism. I think he's quicker off the ball. I think it gives you better interior pass rush, and that's always the shortest distance between the quarterback is right.
That's another thing Dennis Allen taught, that they keep mentioning it. They keep saying, look, you guys talk about edges, but he's like, Montez Sweat can't do his work on the edge unless we get pressure on the inside. So he's really about that interior pressure.
Right.
Keith in the chat says he bets Poles trades back into the first round. My thought on this is if we can somehow trade back from pick 10, if we can trade back from pick 10 and get an extra pick on day 2 or an extra couple picks, then with one of those picks, maybe we do move up. I don't know if we move back into the first round. I think what we do maybe is we get there in day 2, right? We're setting at pick 39. There's only 6 picks ahead of us. If guys like Kenneth Grant or Nick Scoreton, the Texas A&M defensive end, if those guys are on the board, I wouldn't mind trading up a little bit to grab one of those guys. I don't know about trading back in the first round. That'll cost too much. But if we can go up 3 picks and grab Scoreton or Kenneth Grant and give up like a 4th next year or something, give it to me.
I'm okay with trading up to get Grant. And I like Scoreton, no shade at all. I just, again, because there's so many edge rushers, I don't feel the need to have to trade back up. We could
still get Landon Jackson or Princely Umanmielen, or I think Dane Brugler had us landing Jack Sawyer at pick 72. I keep wondering where Jack's going to go. And man, if we can get Jack Sawyer at 72,
I'm fine with that too.
That's I've said, I made a video about a couple weeks ago that the Bears have to take a defensive end in the first 3 picks, right? If we wait till our 4th pick and get Jack Sawyer,
that's a win.
Perfectly happy. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with that. I think Sawyer, he does. You said it right. Like, he's a bear. He just looks like a bear. Howie asked me to rank these tackles. They're late round guys. Logan Brown is Kansas. I believe Jalen Travis, Iowa State, I believe. And Holland Pierce is the Rutgers guy. Out of those three, Holland Pierce is the one I like. He's the one who has he looks like a Ryan Poles type of tackle. He has the long arms. He has the athleticism. Well, you guys said, but Braxton Jones has been a really good player for us. Jalen Travis would be my second. And Logan Brown, he got whooped at the Senior Bowl. So I'd have him last. I saw him just get whooped.
I like Pierce. I like how much, because of how Rutgers ran the ball successfully, so much so this year. And because of the head coach, his name just gave me right now, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer head coach. He coached Rutgers the second time around with Rutgers.
Is it Dungy?
No.
Oh no, I know his name.
I apologize, everybody. His name just escaped me, right? Because he was going to go to Tennessee, and the fans were like, "No, we don't want him." So he ended up going back to Rutgers. But anyway, my point being that a lot of the running schemes that they did were pro ready in a lot of ways. I think he was, the way he's played at Rutgers, I think it geared him for a professional career afterwards. And so I think he's more quote unquote pro ready, as they would say, to be able to be useful and someone that you can use, definitely to spell players and to get that experience so that in a couple of years, he's one of those guys moving forward that's going to be one of your core players, or at least a mainstay.
Yeah, 100%. Someone asked here, if we want to win now, why would we trade back? He said, we want blue chip players. My comment on this is you got to understand this draft is different. Most drafts have about 10 to 15 blue chip players. And then the next level are like potential impact guys, but guys who usually have some kind of hole in their game that you can poke at it. This year's draft, there's like 5 blue chip players and then like 50 potential impact players. So we don't really have a shot at getting one of those blue chip players unless they fall to us at 10. But when we're talking about day 2 picks, we're going to be able to get impact players, even if we trade down a few picks, because it's so deep this year that it just kind of depends on how the draft falls. If there's a big run on defensive linemen before we get picked, we might be better off to say, hey, instead of reaching for a guy that we have 10 to 15 spots down, we can get another pick and add another potential starter. That's what we want. Impact players, not just blue chip players, but guys who are going to make an impact on this roster. But with draft picks, my final point is they're all wild cards. You never know. They're all lottery tickets. So bust rates are high. The more lottery tickets you have on these early rounds, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that your last part is exactly summed up where I was going. It's like, yeah, blue chip player is great until he blows a wheel. And then you're like, man. And then the problem with a blue chip player, if something like that were to happen, is that you don't want to get rid of him because you invested so much into him. So you're waiting around for him to get healthy, better, to learn all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, there are other guys who aren't, most was the best ability is availability. Other guys who you may have who are later picks who you don't have to spend as much money, you're not invested as much heavily in, but they're hungry or just as hungry. They've got something to prove, and you're using that to leverage, them getting the best out of them. But to a greater point, the more lottery picks or the more, draft capital you have, the better you can help with your margin for error. Because if it, like you said earlier, it doesn't matter who you pick, they could have an injury, or they could just not work out for whatever the reason may be. But if I got another player at that same position, or, I've got other players that can help me, or I can utilize some of these players as trade for something else. I mean, it gives you so much more flexibility if you have more picks to choose from, and you're able to get value for your draft pick and good players who are going to be able to play. And I mean, it's, you look at the Lions draft in retrospect, as it was happening real time, people were shaking their head. I was one of them, like Jamar Gibbs. It's like, why did you just take, the kid out of Texas? Why don't you just take, why don't you just take him? Or, okay, what are you doing? You still got, at that time, Swift was still on the team. It's like you got Swift, and you made in the free agency, you went ahead and you got the Bears running back. Like, what are you doing here? Wait, Jack Campbell? Why are you taking him so high? A lot of it didn't. Laporta, really? It's like, what are you doing here? So in retrospect, it's like, oh man, it all worked out. That's because they all stayed healthy enough to play. If any one of those guys didn't pan out because of health reasons, not because of ability, because of health reasons, all of a sudden they're getting slammed and killed. It's like, man, oh, what are you doing? Oh, the Lions are going to line again. Oh, they don't know what they're doing there. It's like, but you look at the Texans. Okay, yeah, they made it work. They had so many draft picks. Thank you, Deshaun Watson. They had a little more margin for error because they had been bad for several years. So they had a lot of first-round picks and a lot of picks anyway. So they had been building a team that people just didn't know about because, they suck. So no one's paying attention to them, but they're getting good players. And then they had an opportunity where they were able to get Stroud and then get Anderson. Well, those are exceptional blue chip players. You're getting top 5 players in the top 5.
They had to trade up to do it. Yeah.
Right.
It cost them an extra first-round pick.
Yeah, but it's like, the quarterback, you can't, you have to take the quarterback, so that's not even a question. And then you get Anderson. It's like, well, Anderson arguably might have been better than any of the quarterbacks that came out. Arguably, might have been better than the quarterbacks that came out that year. So why would you not take him if you can get him? And even if he didn't quite work out, they still had Grinnard on the team, so they still had a decent pass rusher as well. So you got to look at your team. You got to look at what the draft is offering, how it may be moving, how you may be able to leverage or manipulate it. But more importantly, what does this particular draft offer in terms of its draft prospects, and what does your team need, and how deep are those positions?
There's your point. And that's one thing. A lot of chat. They've said they're countering this, but they don't want a 3rd round pick because Ryan Poles sucks in the 3rd round. That's what they're saying now. And look, we get it. Velus Jones missed. Zach Pickens, so far it's looking like a bust. I will say Zach Pickens, one point I do want to point out here is Zach Pickens, 2 years in the NFL. He played in Eberflus's defense out of position. He was a 3 technique. Eberflus moved him to nose tackle to step behind Andrew Billings and play out of position. Let's at least see what Dennis Allen can do with him before we completely write him off. And same thing for Karan Amagaji. That's a guy I believe has a lot of talent. We can't argue with Velus Jones. He's a bust. Yes, but let's at least give him a training camp before you write him off. Let's give him that at least. But also what Glynn said, though, the depth of the draft matters. And a lot of times there hasn't been this quality of players that are going to be available in the 3rd round. There wasn't a Jack Sawyer you could grab in round 3 or an Omar Norman Lott or some of these. This year's draft, when you look at round 3 this year, we'll come back in a week, guys. And I'll look at round 3 this year and show you round 3 the last couple of years. And you're going to be like, who the hell are those guys? Because I think last year's the drafts have fell off a lot earlier, whereas this year the talent's it stays until probably round 4 sometimes, and then it falls off a cliff. And there's still guys you can get later, but the guys who are going to come in and be starters at most positions, it's going to fall off a cliff, and except for maybe defensive tackle and running back, where you can get those guys super late.
Yeah, I agree with you because you kind of just co-signed what I said earlier, but nonetheless, I agree with your analysis of it and your explanation of it. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, man. And it's it's going to be interesting. The other thing I was going to say is that this year, and I know the polls picks in the 3rd round, as people alluded to, sucked for lack of better terms. But you've got Ben Johnson here, and I'll tell you this because of his contract. And because Poles had a bad year last year and he has yet to have a winning season as a GM, and you look at what happened in the free agency and the type of linemen they got and how quickly they moved to get them. And I think Ben Johnson's going to have a lot to say about what's taken, not just in the 3rd round, not just in the 1st round, but the entire draft. And that I think you may see a difference here. You're going to see one invariably because it's going to be the different things that he needs. There's different things he sees as a head coach, and your GM, if he's a good GM at all, eschew his ego, his or her ego, I should say. A good GM is going to pay attention and listen to what the head coach wants. You have to facilitate what they want. Why'd you hire him? You hired him because you believe.
Ben Johnson has an eye for talent. He was part of these drafts of getting Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's already said he's working hand in hand with Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham and Eric Bieniemy, and there's a lot of even really more smart guys in the room. So I think this year's draft is going to be even better. Howie asked, what would be the biggest weakness of a backfield of Bashal, Tootin, and DeAndre Swift? I'd say you need more power there. I think I say Bashul Tootin is a lot like DeAndre Swift, but maybe better even. I really like Tootin, but he offers a similar style of what Swift brings. If I had a Bashul Tootin, I would want to pair him with a guy like Caleb Johnson or Damian Martinez. Give me a short yardage runner to go with them. Get Ollie Gordon in round 7 if you can. That'd be great.
I agree with you. I think you want a little more size, a little more power, a little more especially when you get inside the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, where the yards are tougher to get, and you're going to have to not just break a tackle, you're going to have to move somebody. You may have to move them into the end zone with you. So yeah, I think someone like Johnson, like you mentioned, Martinez, Junkins, who we talked about earlier, I think those are the kind of guys that can move, a linebacker of similar size or a little bit heavier, with a nice, running start. So good 2-3 yard, 4-yard running start. You can move someone that that I have to beat one guy because he going in, what the blocking scheme is with the play calls. This guy's probably not going to be blocked. It's going to either be an inside linebacker or a big ass safety coming in there trying to fill the hole. And you may have to shed an arm tackle of a defensive tackle who's trying to get you at the same time. Can you do that? I Swift, no, not so much. And I think Tootin would kind of be similar in that vein. But some of these other backs you mentioned, Johnson, Martinez, Junkins, a few other people, Ollie Gordon, a few other people, I think they have the size and the wherewithal to be able to do that. And again, that's why, although I like Braden Smith, I'm not touting him so much so because it's like getting Swift again in a lot of ways.
I mean, but I like him as a kick returner too, man. I'd love him in that new kick return game.
Yeah, and I like him. If there's a late, if he's still there, and I think he may still be there 6th, 7th round, he may be a person who's a free agent pickup. If you picked him up as a free agent, I'm fine with that. I don't mind the depth, and again, because you can utilize him more than just as a running back. You can put him out there on punt and kickoff returns. You also can use him as another wide receiver because guess what? That's what he was when he was at Miami. He was a wide receiver. So here's a running back who can run real routes, who has really good hands, who makes contested catches. I saw him catch a pass over 2 guys down the field. Like when I say down the field, I'm talking 20 plus yards down the field over 2 guys. A guy who can also take it the distance. He's got that kind of speed. He's quick. And someone who also has ability near the goal line. Let's say, he's 10, 15 yards away or whatever. He's a guy that can, make a move, make somebody miss. And if he has to meet a safety near the goal line, he has just enough. I don't know if, from the 2-yard line that he's the one I want to hand the ball to, but if I'm 15 yards away, I put him out there, say Swift is nicked up or have him and Swift out there both, it presents problems. It just presents a problem. So all that to say, getting back, I think to the guy's question, we want a bigger, heavier running back with the ability to move the pile and, or, move someone individually out the way.
Yep. And someone just asked about a guy just like that, Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. They asked, I saw someone compare him to Jordan Howard. I don't like that comp at all. I think he's a faster David Montgomery. I don't think he's a product of the Iowa system. I think he's a guy, he ran 22 miles per hour on tape. He has that speed, and he's so hard to bring down. I really like him as a runner. I think he's a day 2 pick.
Yeah, again, being fortunate enough to be at the Big Ten Network this past season, I got to watch a lot of Caleb Johnson, and I'm like, I remember saying to guys, I'm like, he's Heisman worthy. Like, you guys aren't really talking him up. Like, he's putting up some pretty good numbers, and Iowa is not known for passing, so that he's the one getting the ball, and he's still, being able to do damage out there on the field. I'm not quite certain where I put him comp-wise. I don't. He has decent wiggle, not a lot of great wiggle, but he runs well. He's got good eyes. He runs well behind his pads. He runs well within the blocking scheme that's there. So there's a lot to like about Caleb Johnson, and he's got better speed than one would expect. He does pull away from people, which
takes him a little bit longer,
right?
But he has that speed.
Right. He has that build-up speed. He has a long speed, as they would say, not necessarily that initial burst, but he has that long speed. And yeah, there were times I'm watching. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he had. Oh, he's running away from people. Okay, like nobody's talking about this guy. And when I say nobody's talking about him, I mean like professionally. Like he's someone that people should really be talking about. If they need a running back with some size that's got some long speed and blah 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 blah, he's your guy. So yeah, I'm not upset if the Bears were to get him later on. I think he's a little more agile, little faster Roschon Johnson, but that's fine. You know, I'm not saying you have to keep Roshan.
I do like Roshan. I think Roshan this year will be big for him. How does he carve out a role? I think he'll have an opportunity in training camp, and if he can carve out a role in this offense, he'll have chances. But we're definitely bringing in competition, and he's going to have a big training camp and stay healthy. If he gets hurt or is concussed, he's not going to be part of the rotation. I'd already say that.
Yeah, it's not for long, as they say, the NFL. So yeah, that's unfortunate. That's the reality of it, especially at the running back position.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Doug made a good point. I don't think there's any chance we take a cornerback at 10. I think that is something that is so far off the board. It's probably our deepest position on the roster right now, actually.
Yeah, no. Yeah. If we take a cornerback at all, it would be late. You know, it'd be late.
I will say there's a higher chance than expected. Something I didn't really think about all year is us taking a wide receiver on day 2. And I didn't think it was something we would do, but then I hear Dane Brugler was talking about it as well. He said if there's a sweet spot right now in this draft for wide receiver, it's day 2. There's going to be some, because it's not really a big first round wide receiver group.
Right.
But when you get to day 2, there's just a ton of guys. There's some bigger bodied guys. There's some slot guys, and there's some hybrid guys. So I think I haven't really been mocking us with the wide receiver until round 5, but I think we might surprise some people depending on how the board falls.
If Jalen Noel was taken at 41,
I like Jalen Noel.
I am not pissed. I mean, yes, there are other things we need, and you know, if Jalen Noel we take at 41 and somehow at 72 Jack Sawyer's there, then I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really good. Extremely good, as a matter of fact, because what you have in Jalen Noel is you have his Saint Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Sorry, I'm conflating his name. I'm giving him his own name, but you've got your Amon-Ra and St. Brown. I mean, he is that. He's dynamic like that. He really is, and I think St. Brown was like a 3rd round pick.
I think he was 4th actually.
Maybe 4th round. Okay, yeah. So you know he's playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, he remembers every receiver drafted in front of him. So yeah,
exactly.
I think there was like 30 of them. It was crazy.
So I can see Jalen Noel, and he athletically, man, he tests off the charts, dude. He gives you your vertical, he gives you your speed, he gives you quickness, contested catches, ability to run routes. He's a route runner. You know, Iowa State's a solid program. I know people aren't necessarily abreast of how many pros have come out of there because they're not necessarily the first round guys.
I like his teammate too, Jaden Higgins. I mean,
yeah, Higgins is a nice player too. But there's a lot more Iowa State players on rosters than people realize. You start looking around, you realize that's a solid program, and the head coach there has done a phenomenal job really building that program. Iowa State was always a doorstep. For actually not even a doorstop. They weren't even that good. They were a swinging door. They were a revolving door, in terms of just how teams would just run through them. So, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to, again, just say how much I really like Jalen Noel. And if he was taken in one of those first 3 picks, I'm not pissed at all because of who our head coach is. And I've seen what he's done with that type of talent. Guy was asking earlier about, draft picks at 10 and this, and what do you do and why do you do this instead of that? Also factor in who your head coach is and how and what he has done since he's been in the NFL as a coordinator. We have more than 1 year. You have a couple of seasons of seeing him, and you've seen him compete at levels that matter in terms of games that matter in the playoffs and what have you. Now, coordinators can only do so much. They can't catch and throw the ball and everything, but they want to put guys into positions to succeed. And we've seen that continually time and time again with the Detroit Lions. You really have. So I feel strongly about whatever skill position player that Johnson may focus on, because that's going to dictate a lot about where we see this offense going.
Yeah. Is it a wide receiver or is it a Mason Taylor out of LSU? Get that tight end in round 2 as well. Someone asked a question here. We already talked about Ashton Jeanty, but I have one thing I want to say here, because someone asked, did you ever wonder why Jeanty went to Boise State versus a big school? And actually, this is one of the greatest reads I've read letters I've ever read in my life. Ashton Jeanty, if you guys in the chat have not read this yet, After this show, Google it. He wrote a letter to the 32 GMs. He tweeted it out yesterday, and I read it. It's a long letter. It tells a bit of his backstory, and he answers that question in there. He actually got into football late, and he was in junior high, and he was dominating at running back. About to go to high school. His family moved overseas a couple years before he went to high school. They lived in Italy. He picked up on a lot of things, but he didn't play football for 2 years. Went back to high school in America and Texas, right? His coaches moved him from running back to linebacker. He said, I just want to play football. I'll do whatever I can. He was a dominant linebacker playing multiple positions for 3 years. Senior year, they moved him to running back. He said, just give me a chance. He touched the football once and was unstoppable. But the problem was when colleges are recruiting, by the time you're in a senior year of high school, most of these guys have already have their running back commits by then. They're not, he said he wasn't part of any of the running back camps where all the colleges go around. They go to camps throughout the country. They get the best running backs in the area and they work them all out. He wasn't part of those camps, but he did get to go to one. And he said he got to line up against all these 5-star recruits, these guys that are going to Georgia, these guys that are going to Alabama, these guys that are going to Ohio State. He didn't know who they were at the time, but he cooked every single one of them in one-on-one drills and then was told afterwards. The reason he stayed at Boise State and didn't transfer out, because they're the team that gave him the chance. And he's like a legend there. I mean, the fans absolutely love this guy. But the reason why he wasn't recruited to a bigger school is because he did get a late start in football. But I don't know where he was going with that. But I did want to answer that question. And I did want to tell you guys, I think that letter is worth reading. And if you're someone that's not a fan of Genty, even if you don't want the Bears to draft him, after you read that letter, I guarantee you're going to root for him because it's an awesome letter. And I do think it's a must read for football fans.
Yeah, I mean, character is definitely not an issue with him whatsoever.
And he's loyal. He wanted to remain loyal to the team that recruited him. And that's something you got to, hey, if we're the team that drafts him, maybe he'll end up being loyal to us later. But yeah, I just want to say that.
You mean he didn't pull a Nico? Yeah,
no Nico, no Imalava stuff. He's not holding out for NIL money.
Oh, my volunteers! Oh, what a wicked web we weave. Yeah, you know what? I said earlier.
Did you go to UCLA, by the way? Is that what I saw?
It's not guaranteed. It's not. No T's are been crossed, no I's have been dotted. So he's still out there for all intents and purposes. And earlier on, I said earlier, I rooted for Genty. I actually wanted him to win the Heisman. So I'm not opposed to him as a player or his talent. I just at 10 for what the Bears, although running back is an area of deep thought, and I won't say concern, but of deep thought and regard because of this draft class. I don't think you have to take him there. That being said, I will and I believe that I'll root for him unless he goes to one of our teams in a division. If he goes to Minnesota, which I don't necessarily see them doing that, and unless he goes to Green Bay again, I don't see them doing that. I don't see him going to Detroit. So it doesn't make sense to go to any one of those three teams. So I can root for him, ostensibly from afar.
Yeah, I won't root for anybody if they're on another NFC North team.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, but yeah, that's nice, nice ditty right there, man. Nice anecdotal information right there regarding.
It's a good read, I'll tell you. Even if you don't like him, it's a really good read, and you learn a lot about him. And it was one of those letters I read it, and I was like, damn, I really want Ashton Genty now. But I sent it to one of my longtime subscribers, Eric Harper, and he wasn't a huge Genty fan, but I sent it to him, and he sent me back like, damn it, Swift, now I want Ashton Genty. And I was like, oh, my bad. But it was awesome. I think that was about it. We've been live about an hour and a half. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on? I think we got most of the questions, almost all the questions out of the way. So I think we did a good job of that.
Yeah, no, just to reiterate, I think I said not too long ago that whatever type of skill position player, especially if it's chosen within the first 4 picks, that the Bears take, with Ben Johnson's, definitely influence will be a strong indication for us as fans where this team is going to go and how it's going to identify itself on the football field. Like if Warren is taken 10 overall, and then they take another player who's a skilled player, whether it's a running back or wide receiver, then you know that, okay, you know what, this offense is going to be attacking and versatile, and it's going to attack probably more so this way than that way. Is it going to be a power offense? Is it going to be that you'll have a better indication?
I think the running back we take will like if we take a Caleb Johnson or a Damian Martinez, then you're all of a sudden like, oh, we're going to run some power run game. But if we end up taking a Travion Henderson, all of a sudden you're like, we're going to pass a lot, aren't we? Like, so we will find some stuff out this year in the draft, and we're less than a week away.
Right. Yeah. Because, let's say they take a Deontay Thornton Jr. Late, with his, you start thinking in your mind like, hey, speed wise, he's very reminiscent of the receiver they have that was out of Alabama,
Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams. So, and it's like, wow, man. So they're going to be vertical. You think about him as like vertical. If you get Jalen Noel, I'm like, okay, horizontal. If you get Warren, okay, Warren and Noel, horizontal. If you get a big power back and you draft offensive lineman, okay, power play action. So which I don't know if that's really Caleb's strength right now. I mean, that was definitely what is golf strength, play action pass.
Oh, we're gonna run it. We're gonna run it for sure. I think it only makes him better. I think it's something he'll definitely get better at, but
he's gonna have to learn. He's gonna have to learn. He's gonna have to learn. But yeah, man. So yeah, not much more else to offer than that. But I am slowly looking forward to it. As I told you earlier off camera, that I will be in Green Bay, so I'm gonna try and do as much as I can to
from the draft, baby.
Yeah. Get some insights from people around, and then just bring back a little bit of the draft vibe, so to speak. So yeah, looking forward to, man. And as always, Swifty, appreciate you having me on the platform, man. Taking time to share it with me. I thoroughly enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoyed being on your show, and enjoy your chat. All the questions that everyone asked, just really good questions, insight. People, fighting back at us as well. I like that. If they don't agree, hey, let us know.
They'll tell us.
That's the good thing, man. So I enjoyed.
They're usually pretty respectful with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Very engaging, man. And so I enjoy it all, man. I'm here for all the smoke. I'm here for all the other stuff in between as well, man. So thank you again. Thank you, chat. Appreciate it. And bear down, baby. Bear down.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on after the draft as well, Glynn. We'll have to see who we picked, man. I appreciate it. And like Glynn said,